What's up, everyone? Ian, aka DJ IBG here, and today I'm giving away a Melbourne bounce type bass patch for Ableton's analog synth. I created this for a new record that I'm working on with trumpet player Matt Von Roderick. Here's a preview of the main drop. If this type of sound appeals to you, just click the link below, download this rack for free, and start using it. All right, let's look at what makes this beloved bounce sound that you hear on a lot of tracks. It's usually a simple but punchy analog sound, reminiscent of a Moog or another similar old school synth. Let's check out how analog can get this vibe going for us. A key element of this whole patch is going to be the first oscillator here, which you want to have set to a saw and down an octave. Then comes probably the most crucial part of the whole thing, which is setting a quick filter envelope here. Once I start pulling this filter down, you're going to immediately start to hear the sound improving. And let's add a moderate amount of resonance. Okay, I'm going to bring the filter sustain all the way down. And add a pretty quick filter decay, somewhere around 300 milliseconds. Now let's look at the amp for oscillator 1 real quick. The general shape is good here, but I'd like to macro map this decay so I can adjust it much easier later on. I'm going to do the same thing with oscillator 2 a little bit later, and this way we'll be able to dial in the length of both oscillators at the same time, which is cool. Now in order to create macros, we got to group this synth. We'll do that by right or control clicking on it and choosing group. Click the circle right here to open the macro area. Then I'll right or control click on decay and assign it. And I'll rename it too while I'm here. I'm going to do the same thing with filter 1's cutoff. Cool, much more convenient. Great. Now I'm going to turn off oscillator 1 so I can dial in some sub bass with the second oscillator below. I'm going to select a sine wave this time instead of a saw, and also we'll take it down an octave. Now you might not be able to hear this if you aren't using headphones or a subwoofer, but rest assured that this low sine wave is giving me a really thick low end. Now let's route everything through filter 2 and amp 2 by turning this guy all the way to F2 and then turning on amp 2. Let's set a similarly quick filter for this oscillator 2, but this time we don't have to set it so far down. I just want to shave off a tiny bit of the top end of this sound so it doesn't conflict too much with our oscillator 1. Now I'll bring the sustain all the way down on amp 2. So you might be thinking this is almost like an 808 kick drum sound, which it kind of is. But that's going to give the sound a lot of body. Okay, now remember how I macro mapped the decay of oscillator 1's amp? I'm going to do the same thing and macro map the decay to the same knob as the decay for oscillator 1. Now the decay for both oscillators move together, which is really sweet, especially later when you're fine-tuning your sound. Let's turn oscillator 1 back on and see what we got. Okay, things are taking shape, but it's probably a little too clean right now, so I'm going to add some white noise. And I'll macro map the volume of the white noise too. Okay, one last thing with analog. Let's turn on the first LFO and route it to oscillator 1's pitch. Right now I'll make it super obvious so you can tell what effect this is having. Yeah, obviously that sucks, but if we do this a little more subtly, we can mimic how old school analog synths had a certain amount of pitch drift that was part of their characteristic sound, kind of the way an acoustic guitar is never exactly 100% perfectly in tune. So I'll set the rate to around 5 Hertz, somewhere around there, and then just add a dash of it to the pitch modulation section here. You can of course add more or less to your taste. Now this basically isn't noticeable, but like with a lot of things with synth programming, it's the little things that add up and make the whole sound cool in the end. So definitely play around with this idea, see what you can come up with. All right, now let's check out some final processing. After my synth, I've got a chain of effects to just ever so slightly sweeten things up. All in all though, they're gonna make a big difference. First up, I have a simple EQ, which takes out a lot of the mud in the 150 Hertz range. Then I got another bell at 5K to add some snap to the sound. Of course, I have this macro mapped to the snap knob right here. Then I have the now infamous OTT preset for multiband dynamics. But with the dry-wet control turned down quite a bit so that we get a big dose of parallel compression and not the full effect of OTT. Next I have another EQ, this time with a bell macro mapped at 200 Hertz. Now how you use this is up to you, but I find that it gives the sound a lot of clarity. I have this macro mapped to the clarity knob down here. Next I have a saturator for some serious drive, harmonic distortion, and some soft clipping. Then there's a good old chorus effect to spread out some of the high frequencies if you want a wider sound instead of one that's dead mono. Then finally, a simple utility effect, which I have mapped here just for volume control. And that's all she wrote. Again, feel free to grab this rack for free by entering your email address over at warpacademy.com. You can also check out some of my other videos and free racks on the Warp Academy blog, such as my Deep House bass rack or my future bass chord lead. Check them out. Until next time, adios.